Bitfinex. BitMEX founder predicts gold rising to 10K, Bitcoin marching to $1 million. The price of Bitcoin has been down lately while the price of gold has been up. But now they're saying that both gold and Bitcoin could skyrocket. Adam McBride, everyone loves the price of Bitcoin. What can you tell us about the price?
Well, you see, if you read that article, really nice article actually. What he puts in it is
We're talking
basically,
about Arthur Hayes, right? And I mean, this
yeah. Did
guy
you
is a
read?
brilliant, brilliant man.
Yep, he certainly is. And he made a really interesting point, which is like, look, the world's seeing now, individuals are seeing that these governments aren't necessarily to be trusted, right? Truckers in Canada, they'll take your bank account, no, like court order, just grab it, right? And with the Russians, government's money being frozen through the SWIFT network and this sort of stuff, his kind of point was like, look, now countries around the world are seeing that their assets can be frozen. So they're going to look to diversify, and the places to diversify are gold and Bitcoin.
I think that Putin is also seizing Biden's assets, but evidently Biden is a junior, and so they're seizing his dead father's assets at this point. Was on the list, but yeah.
Yep. So the theory, it's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about that, about that carryover, or what kind of a precedent's been set. And it's an interesting theory. Who knows if it'll happen? But if it does, if these kind of countries start moving into Bitcoin as a store of value or something, oh my God, forget it. It's crazy time.
I think the bigger problem for us is if they move away from the SWIFT network, which the United States basically controls, and they create their own, then that's going to be a big problem for us. But we're getting off topic. I apologize.
Mike Dupree, your thoughts on Bitcoin and if governments could use it as a store of value?
I don't know. Like El Salvador is certainly trying to, and I was down there a few months ago at the conference talking about anti-money laundering and these kind of things, and I'm really excited with the ideas that they're trying to execute. But it's a bit disconcerting at points whether or not they're going to actually fuck it up and make Bitcoin look bad, for lack of better words. So it's not as easy as it looks necessarily, but I think that governmental involvement in Bitcoin is good, but I think that El Salvador has the potential to have fractional reserve Bitcoin, since they only allow a Lightning network within their ATMs and their exchanges, for example. So I think the jury is really still out over there.
Dan Eve, Bitcoin to $1 million?
Well, I think so, and eventually, I think maybe not in the short term, but the gold situation is getting crazy. It's near another all-time high. You've got China and Russia have been stacking gold for a few years now. In the UK, just over 20 years ago, Gordon Brown sold off almost half of the UK's gold, and got a measly $275 an ounce. So it's kind of another Bitcoin pizza sort of situation where he sold it for $3.5 billion versus about 16.7 billion now, which is crazy. I think that Bitcoin's on its way up. Obviously, we're in a bit of a kind of sideways market at the moment, but there seems to be hints of another bunch of checks coming, right? Stimulus checks coming in from the US, and we all know what happened last time. A bunch of them were actually used to buy Bitcoin, which is obviously really cool. But the general article,
it's kind of ironic that our United States ATM average transaction is currently $1,200. I know the stimulus checks were ages ago, but literally right now it's still $1,200 average.
But that could be because people literally were saving those checks. Like, I'm going to save this check for a rainy day because it's not in my account, and therefore it can't be taken out by direct debit or whatever. So they'll save that stimulus check. And now they're finally thinking, oh, actually, they're printing so much of this, I might as well put it into Bitcoin. Because remember what happened last time? They bought Bitcoin with the stimulus checks when it was like $9,000 or something in 2020, and it's now 40, and was 68. But yeah, it does seem like the US dollar is kind of could potentially, is losing its hold right now. Even like Saudi Arabia wants to sell oil in Chinese yuan, Russia to India oil exports that India is kind of glossing over currency instead of the US dollar. So it's kind of almost setting the stage for the Chinese yuan as the digital dollar, right? Which is what they've been kind of working at right now. And this turmoil and the sanctions on Russia, Russia's still selling their oil. It's just going through different sort of avenues. Obviously they've got other issues with their assets frozen. But like I read that rather than obviously Europe, US just cutting off the oil supply from Russia, it's being sold elsewhere, and then that's being sold at a premium back to the US and other areas in the Europe. So it's finding a way to get back, because at the end of the day, there is a dependence on energy on Russia. They're the biggest energy
What do you
producer
think
in the
about
world.
though, like Elon saying, "Hey, like America, wake up! We need to start producing more of our own oil."
Very sensible, because as much of the guy, the fact is, I kind of respect. He has some crazy stuff, but I respect them that Tesla's technology is open source. So if anyone can do it better, he wants sustainable energy ultimately. And
so
he
we don't
knows
mind
that,
if he revolutionizes the energy economy. We just don't want him promoting doggy coin and such and fucking around with our financial markets.
That's right.
Exactly.
No doggy coin. No doggy coin.
But I think that if you haven't had a chance to read the article, I think he pretty much summarizes with a really poetic little finish, which is, remember this: you own nothing. You merely rent your net worth, both as an individual or sovereign, from the entity that operates that centralized permission fiat digital monetary network. Referring to Swift and Co. And so the fact is that again, going back to this whole premise of, if you don't own your private keys, you don't own your Bitcoin, and your money's in other people's hands right now. Your money's
That's the
in a
issue
bank.
in El Salvador with the Chivo network. You don't hold your keys, thus you don't own your Bitcoin.
Yeah, because it's kind of, they're using a permission Lightning network, right? It's not people running their own nodes. So
Yeah,
own
correct.
keys,
And it
own
all
Bitcoin.
has to be administered through the government. So it's free, and they allow you to interchange, but it's not really your own private keys.
There you go.
Sounds like Bitcoin is bringing a lot of freedom there to El Salvador.
Oh yeah.
Moving on to Martin, maybe Russia will trade their oil for Bitcoin. Only 21 million units, quite a collectible still.
I don't know. I read the article, and every time somebody wants attention, they just add an extra zero to the projected Bitcoin price. So yes, he's obviously very, very smart man, but and even if
the more zeros you add, the smarter you get.
Yeah, and if you add the most zeros, you'll end up in Forbes or something. So it's I don't know. Every time I see that, say, sure, eventually the Bitcoin will be worth maybe 1 million. But by that time, it's just enough to buy a cheeseburger at McDonald's. So, because the inflation is catching up too. I'm not really impressed by those projections. And yes, sure, the prices are going up. And Russia apparently is one of the world's largest gold producers, but they can't access half of their gold. So I'm really curious, where is their gold stored? Not in Russia itself then. Did they give the gold to the Swiss, or what happened here? I couldn't find that information. I tried researching it, but it's nobody knows where the Russian gold is. Maybe it's in Putin.
It's probably
Josh has confiscated it in Voltoro.
It's probably in
it's all in Voltoro.
No gold for you,
I think that it is really important to note, though, that in the previous years when Arthur has made these predictions, he's actually very, very smart. Like, I met him probably 7 or 8 years ago. I don't know exactly when, in Hong Kong. And he's just like, he's not someone that doesn't know his math and his numbers. So I know that anyone can say, oh, gold's going to 10K and Bitcoin's going to 1 million and whatever else. But I feel like Arthur actually has a finger on the pulse, and BitMEX is not a small exchange. And some of the things they've done are really cool. So I wouldn't underestimate his opinion. He's been right many times in the past, if you look back.
It's just that there is no time frame set on the prediction. So when there is no time frame set on the prediction, I'm not really impressed with the prediction because it's like, sure,
Yeah, because it could be in
it will go
1,000
up.
years of dollars worthless.
Exactly,
And that's,
and then,
yeah.
oh yeah, Arthur was right all along. Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
I just mean that in general, he has a good idea of what's going on,
it,
and he's a really smart guy. And I
it was
don't
a good
think he's
article
personally
too.
valuing or benefiting from trying to make these predictions.
Anybody who uses that prediction and then trades on BitMEX will probably end up wrecked, going 50 times leverage or something.
So also report that on Twitter, Plan B has come back and says that Bitcoin is still within the range, and if it just goes up like crazy, he'll be back on board, and the Plan B theory will all be good to go.
Yeah, but until then, he's an antivirus expert or something, COVID expert. I stopped following the tweets. Sorry, Plan B, if you're listening, but I followed you for your predictions and not the COVID advice.